And as Kathleen mentioned, our focus at 4 today is a consumer alert. Scammers are targeting Texans in ways we have never seen before. And we start with hackers trying to get into your personal computer. And they do this by tricking you into letting them in. Aisha Hasney explains.
I certainly wouldn't want anybody to get into my computer.
These days, we worry about hackers trying to break into our computers. But what if we actually let them in? It all starts with a phone call and an offer to save the day.
Somebody will say, gee, we found that there's a problem with your computer, some sort of virus. Let me help you with it.
The BBB says a lot of Hoosiers have been getting these calls. Many thought the caller was trying to help. What they didn't know was that it was actually a scammer trying to gain full access to their hard drive.
You could have identity theft, lose money in your bank accounts, have things charged on your charged cards.
So the next time your phone rings, the BBB wants you to look out for some red flags.
If you get an unsolicited call, that's a real red flag, or an unsolicited email. And if someone is proactively telling you, you've got a problem with your computer, you've got a virus, that should be a real red flag also.
Scammers can even mask their identity by using apps that'll change their numbers to look like you're getting a phone call from a legitimate company, maybe like Microsoft. The best thing that you can do is hang up.
The people who are doing this, they'll pick a certain area of the country. Let's say they're going to go to central Indiana. They'll work that area until they're found out.
And we want to take that one step further and let you know about another type of scam that's happening here in the Brazos Valley. Lieutenant Alan Barone, I knew I was going to mess that up. Lieutenant for the Texas A&M University Police Department. You're here to tell us about a new scam that has targeted a lot of students involving debit cards, but we want you to explain this for our viewers because this is really something that could happen to any one of us. Take it from there. What have you learned?
Well, it's great. We first started seeing this several months back. It's often referred to as an IRS scam, Internal Revenue Service, where individuals were receiving phone calls and they were told that they owed back taxes, and if they didn't pay those taxes, they were going to be arrested or incarcerated. And so they were told to make payments with a prepaid debit card purchased at a local store. So that should be your first clue right there, that this is a scam. The Internal Revenue Service or any government agency is never going to contact you by phone and ask you to make a payment over the phone, especially with a prepaid debit card.
I was fascinated when I heard that this was news was coming from your agency, because when we think of scams, we often think of a certain demographic, sometimes our senior citizens, but you have said that some of these have targeted students. These scammers are calling up and saying, look, if you're not paying your tuition, if you're not paying your bills, we're going to come arrest you.
Yeah, and we've had several of those. Most recently, we've had one involving the impersonation of a law enforcement agency, telling students or our community members that if they had outstanding citations or they had fines that were due, and if they didn't pay those, they would be arrested. And so again, they gave them instructions to make payments with a prepaid or a preloaded debit card, and that's where the scam begins. We've also had some where we've had students that have been told that they were delinquent on their school bills or their tuition payments and needed to make those immediately, and again, they were told to make those through preloaded debit cards.
Lieutenant, talk about how important it is to think about how convincing that these scammers can be. We're talking about college students. I mean, these are smart people, but they're still falling for this.
Right. I mean, and these types of scam artists can be very, very convincing. A lot of times when they make these phone calls to individuals, they have altered the phone numbers and the caller IDs to actually show up on your phone as if you're actually getting a call from that agency. So it may show up to be from the Internal Revenue Service. Even if you go back to check the phone number that came over your caller ID, it will show up to be a phone number associated with the Internal Revenue Service or a law enforcement agency or something of that nature. We refer to that as being spoofed, and that's one of the techniques that they use in order to get the victim to believe that they actually owe money or that they need to comply with the request. Now, often when you don't comply with their request, they become very aggressive.
That's where they start saying, we're going to come arrest you, we're going to send the police down.
They start making threats of arrest, We've had even some of our international students that were threatened with deportation and things such as that. But those are things that are telling you, hey, something's not right here. This is a scam. We need to report this to our local law enforcement agency.
And don't forget, they'll never use email, text, or social media. Just some of the bullet points there on your screen. Lieutenant, thanks for coming in. You said, you know what, best thing you can do? Hang up.
And that is true. You get these calls and you believe them to be a scam, you can hang up the phone. But if you believe you've been a victim of a scam, it is very, very important that you take the time to report that to your local law enforcement agency. Often, a lot of time, people are embarrassed under these circumstances that that they fell for this.
None to be embarrassed about.
No, it's
these
not.
are convincing folks. These are professionals that sometimes
Can
do
happen to
this.
any one of us.
All right, Lieutenant Barone with the Texas A&M University Police Department, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to